Okay. The survivors. Yeah. How are y'all doing tonight?
Great.
Very tired?
Yes.
Yes. This has been a unique experience for me. I don't know about you. I've never been to Egypt before, nor on a tour before. I'll tell you, if they're anything like this, once every 2,000 years is plenty for me.
You don't have to get up 3:30 in the morning.
I mean, really. I think we've all been initiated into the Azurite boot camp here. And despite how very strange and completely unprogrammable it has been, we've managed to achieve what we set out to do in a rather strange order, but we at least accomplished it. I want to thank you, first of all, for participating in the grid mechanics. It is very, very... I can't even find the words to explain or express how significant it is that a group of people under these circumstances and in our time period, with the very little bit of time that this material has even been available, have been able to assemble themselves, pull themselves together, get here and do major master levels of grid work. That's what we've been doing. And we've been kind of doing it blind with some good direction from up above. We know what we're doing, but I like to basically walk people through it first and then say, let's do it, once you know what doing it means. We've learned an interesting lesson through all of this, that we can think on our feet. I'm getting a feeling that it was allowed to run this way, airplanes now, for the purpose. Of course, we're trying to make an audio tape, for the purpose of getting us used to that, perhaps. In the next 10, 12 years, there may be some very strange changes for us as individuals. And the more flexible we are to bizarre circumstances around us, the more we will be able to hold ourselves with dignity and grace and effective action within changing circumstances. So when I encounter lessons like this from the universe, I try to deal with them as best I can and realize that there is a lesson in it for me. When you have situations that are not exactly as you planned or the way you exactly wanted them to work out, you can look at them two ways. You can be really bummed out because they didn't go exactly how you wanted, or you can say, this is interesting. What was the lesson in it for me? And realize that on some level, your soul, your oversoul, your avatar, somebody up there in your own identity levels agreed to allow you to participate in the circumstances. This even goes for very negative circumstances for people. I mean, this was a little strange and hustle bustle. We're being moved around like herds of cattle, but we got to see a lot of sights. We got to recode a lot of grids, and we also got to get our own light body work done, which is what I want to talk about a little bit tonight. What exactly did we do? There are people, and we've seen some of that in exposure to this culture, who are dealing with on a daily basis much more negative circumstances than a little bit of jogging around of their itinerary. They're dealing with the standard of living that is brutal compared to what we're used to in America. They're dealing with a socioeconomic and political structure that there really is no way out of. When you compare the levels of discomfort that we sometimes have to endure, sometimes being from America, where we have a lot of privilege, we forget what that privilege is. So it might help if we can look a little bit at what it could be. If we can take any experience in our lives, if it's negative or troublesome or seemingly chaotic at the time, and realize it's a part of the healing and a part of the reordering to a higher level, and that there are lessons in it that will help you to hold yourselves better and stronger and more powerful and with greater love. We don't get beaten by the circumstances. We don't get run over by them. The people and cultures like we're exposed to when visiting third world countries, and this isn't bad, there's even worse than this. You can go to India, and there's parts of India that are absolutely horrendous for the people who have to live it. There are other countries that have even worse problems. if we can realize as a group of people who have the privilege of exposure to information of enlightenment that it is not a pleasant circumstance to move through, but there are reasons behind that too. The people involved with those type of cultures do have reasons for being involved in those cultures, and it's not a punishment factor, it's a learning factor. If we look back in our own incarnational placements, we would probably find numerous times when we walked that path and we learned those lessons. They're lessons in humility, they're lessons in having nothing outside of you, so you have to go inside of you. They're lessons of survival that teach you a strength, and if you're fortunate, it doesn't take you too many times through those kind of cultures to develop a dignity, a spiritual dignity, where you're able to have compassion for other people. We saw a lot of interesting people, particularly in the bazaars, where it's like the great attack, retail assault every time you take 2 steps. This is the way these people have needed to evolve right now in order to teach themselves things. There's a lesson that eventually will touch cultures like this, and it's the law of reciprocity. The ones that become most giving, not passive and letting others walk on them, but who genuinely give from the heart, will find opportunities come to them more easily than those who are looking for all the time and looking to scam people. So the people that are involved in cultural situations like we've seen are here to learn lessons just like we are. So we can look at the lessons that we might have learned from our very strange experience of having our itineraries every day thrown up in the air and see where they fall. This has been very strange to me because I tend to be very, very organized in my presentations, always right at the last minute. If anybody's been to my workshops, you know I'm like up all night the night before just getting it wrapped up because I don't get the information, usually the full material for the workshop, until 3 days before the presentation. And I have a feeling some of it is to get me to be able to dance on my toes when necessary, but some of it's also a security measure because there are forces that don't want this information out. So it's given to me right before an event so I can get it down without a lot of interference coming in between. When if somebody doesn't know exactly what's being released, they're not sure how to position themselves in opposition. So I am used to this, but many of you may not be used to this, where you make your plans, you set them, they're the way you kind of want them to be, then you just need to trust a higher order of organization for it to fall into place. I hope that you can still take the experience of this trip and find the values in it, the things that were valuable to you. And in retrospect, you'll have time to look at pieces of the journey and to investigate more about what they felt like. When you're rushed through situations, it's good to just kind of absorb the situation. Your cellular memory is recording it just like a video camcorder. Once you have time back in your comfortable environment, you can kind of stretch out after you sleep for a week or whatever. You can kind of take a little bit of ponder time and go back and ask yourself, gee, what did I pick up from this experience? And you'll find things there. You'll begin to find the gems among the chaos of the rushing from place to place once you're able to slow it down. So I hope you've enjoyed it, even though it's been pretty amazing to me. I've just never been rushed through a series of events so fast in all of my life this time around. I hope you're happy with the experience, that you feel it has been worthwhile. If for nothing else, we got to see a lot of places. We got to participate in major planetary service work at a level that's really so far above what's being done out there. I can't even describe it to most people. So the fact that you can even sit here and participate with this and understand it shows a lot for the level of consciousness you carry on your own. This is a master's course. It's not a neophyte course by any means. And to be able to plug into that in like 48 hours and just go for it is very impressive. The Azurite Council and related groups are very, very impressed with the ability of this group to focus themselves despite the sort of adverse, chaotic circumstances. I hope you can go back realizing that there is one lesson here, a lesson of teaching yourself how special you really are. Because you can look at the other light workers out there and the type of work that they're doing, and they're doing good work, a lot of them. Some of them are doing middle ground work, some of them are doing, basic neophyte work, and that's fine because it's all needed. Because you have all those levels of consciousness on the planet. We're even so far out of their range that most of them have no clue as to what it means to release light code seals on the Hall of Records or the Halls of Amente. They don't even know what the Halls of Amente are. They just don't have this information yet. Which means you are a small group of people who have exposure to some of the highest frequency information available right now on the planet. There are a couple little clusters on the global level in different cultures that are dealing with mechanics of this sophistication. I don't know them and they don't know me, but we're part of a team and we work together. Their groups are assisting what our groups are doing. So it's not that we're this elite snobby group or anything. We're carrying a responsibility. The Azurite Council has a huge responsibility for whether or not things are going to be really rough here over the next 12 years, or whether we're going to be able to stabilize the grids enough so the rest of them, they tend to like to poke fun at you and bug you because they just don't understand the level you're dealing with. We're helping them too, all sides. So take with you at least the self-appreciation. And you can look at yourself a little bit differently than you did before. Just for the fact that you've been able to participate in this, plug into it and go for it. It's really an awesome thing that you have done here with your consciousness. You have leapfrogged 2,000 years of development. This planet and the consciousness, the basic consciousness here, was not ready for this data or to go anywhere near this level of energy work for about 2,000 years. It wouldn't have been given if we would have made it to that 2,000 years. The planet wasn't going to get there. We weren't going to get there. You've done an amazing thing. You've leapfrogged your evolution, at least conceptually, 2,000 years into the future by dealing with this. When it comes to the personal stuff that we've done, that we did today, this is the exciting part. Because what has happened in this group of people has not been permitted nor able to happen in 10,000 years on this planet. Not this fast, not all at once. Each chakra level that we open used to take a minimum of 12 years of training before that would be permitted. Before the body, the consciousness, the emotional body could be trained little bit by little bit to deal with those energies being released. Within a week's time, we just released the seals on 9 chakras and activated completely the first Kundalini spiral. When we investigate more what that means, we begin to understand how significant that is compared to what's going on in most people's bioenergetic fields. Now, all of us on the planet are going into an acceleration. We're all going into rapid DNA activation for the period of time that the stargates of Amente will be opened, because the planetary grid accelerates, which makes our biofields and our DNA accelerate. But most people will come nowhere near the level of acceleration that this group has participated with today. I'm going to use some of the diagrams in the Cathar Healing Manual. Some of you have seen this and some of you haven't yet. Just to explain a little bit about what the process, the biophysical process of ascension is, so you know what this applies to. When I talk about releasing seals on chakras, we can, let me find the graph that shows where the chakras are. I saw some of you looking at it today on the bus. It will show you the placement of the 15 primary chakras, this chart. So usually I have my Mylars so I can point, but this time, a lot of you are familiar with this from taking the workshops. But on this chart here, you can see that these horizontal little crossbow things are chakras. When we activated the 8th and 9th chakra, that was these that run through at a diagonal, through the head, through the pineal gland. An interesting thing I learned while doing these activations today was when I did the release on the seal on the 3rd eye, the 6th chakra. I began to understand some symbology in our culture. The crown of thorns, that's a very Christian thing as far as the Christ story goes. It was very symbolic as well as a literal interpretation of events at the time. Because when I released that seal on everybody, and when I did the first one, I was very amazed because this literal crown of crystals came out and released. When I pressed here and the points here and ran the energy, this very interesting configuration of energy ran through the brain circuitry very quickly, and then literally this crown of what looked like crystal thorns popped out. And I understood what they were. They were part of the Atlantean programming crystals that had been put into us with the Palladian seal thousands and thousands of years ago, that have regulated how much frequency would be able to translate through the brain. With the release of that, the 8th and 9th chakras can come into activation. And when they do, they first just start to activate and they'll spiral the energies through themselves. And when they hit a certain level of speed with that spiraling, which will come naturally, you'll each have your own rhythm with it, they will start to spin. And they will form a halo. So in the Christian mythologies, when you see the paintings of the beings with the halos, they were telling us all along about these processes, but they were telling us in symbol codes that it would take us centuries and centuries to understand. We've released the crown of thorns and it allows the halo to come out. The halo is the scalar configuration. It's one of the scalar shields that goes with what's called the Huva bodies. Now, we've talked about that in the workshops, and anybody that has the Tangible Structure of the Soul course has also had exposure to Huva bodies. For anybody who hasn't, they can basically be understood as, I'm going to show you this diagram because it's the easiest to use for this. And it's the primary thing you need to understand as far as understanding the ascension process and understanding what the activations are that we participated in. So you can find the page here. Okay. Now, this diagram, people in my workshops have seen this a few hundred times too. Okay. This diagram has been used to show a number of things. First of all, it's been used to show a time matrix with its 15 dimensions inside of an energy matrix with its 3 non-dimensionalized levels. It's been used to show the placement of the harmonic universes within that structure. But this can also be applied to your 15-dimensional anatomy plus 3. We're only dealing with 15 dimensions of the anatomy right now, but they will get you to the point where you can integrate the last 3, which are the ascended mastery levels. Now, Huva bodies are scalar grids that, they're actually spherical energy fields that form on scalar grids for each of the harmonics. Each Huva body contains the frequencies of 3 dimensions, and it is a Huva body that allows us a 3-dimensional perceptual field. We have the Huva body in harmonic 1 that has our physical, mental, and emotional bodies contained within it. That's called the Nada Huva body. We have in harmonic 2 what's called the soul matrix, or the Alpha Huva body. It contains the portions of our cells that are stationed in dimensions 4, 5, and 6. In harmonic 3, we have the Beta Huva body, which contains our 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensional consciousness. These are the ones we're dealing with right now. The activations that we just had done on the chakras. We will begin to merge this ball of consciousness with this ball of consciousness with this ball of consciousness. We are beginning to, when we open the seals, it begins to open the energy fields, the barriers, which are electromagnetic polarity barriers between the Huva bodies, where they can begin to merge with each other. And when I'm showing the Huva body specifically, this one would be a little smaller, this one would represent a bit more expansion, this one a bit more expansion. So we're progressively opening ourselves to expanding first into 6th dimensional consciousness, then into 9th dimensional consciousness. Then we would go through the processes of expanding to the even higher levels. Now, This process constitutes what's called first soul integration, which is the Nada Huva body and the Alpha Huva body merging. And the next one is oversoul integration, which would be the Meta Huva body merging with the Alpha and the Nada Huva body. By releasing the seals on the chakras, which have direct correspondences to each DNA strand, direct correspondences to the dimensional framework with each of the Huva bodies, we are activating several things. We are activating the process of these things merging, which sets in motion the process of the 3 spirals of Kundalini energy, which are really life force energy that's connected to the planetary core, where we open up what's called the planetary biofeed interface system. We begin to plug in and draw more energy from the planetary grids. We are activating that process, opening ourselves to the planetary grids, opening ourselves to the higher levels of our own identity. Each chakra activation that we had creates a DNA activation. It begins to fill out the frequencies that are missing in that DNA strand. When we release chakra 1, it begins to activate dormant codes that may be dormant in strand 1. Most of us have strands 1, 2, and 3 activated right now to have 3-dimensional consciousness. We're just going into 4th strand activation, which gives you astral perception. It would let you start to perceive what happens up here in the alpha Huva body, that perceptual field. By releasing all of these seals at one time, it is progressively activating all of those DNA strands that correspond to it at the same time. They will find their own sequence. So you will have strand 9 activating, and that'll stimulate strand 8, which will stimulate strand 7. Meanwhile, you're working your way up from 3 to 4 to 5, and they'll meet in the middle. Progressively, your perceptions will expand. When you go into 4th strand activation, you begin to become aware of what's called the astral plane. That's the 4th dimensional frequency bands. You won't see that as fully solid until your consciousness is stationed in the 5th dimensional frequency bands, because you will see as a solid reality field what exists 1 full dimension below the station of your consciousness. Okay? Our consciousness is actually in D4 right now, so we see D3 as solid. We are making a shift now into 4th and then 5th strand activation. We will get ourselves a 5th dimensional consciousness, which will allow us to see first the 4th dimensional frequency bands and what's contained within them as a solid matter reality field. But we'll go beyond that. Now what we're aiming for on a planetary level is to get everybody up to about 4.5 DNA activation, so they can see as solid D3.5, which is the positioning of what is called inner Earth. Okay? It's a reality field that will literally, they're going to be moving into a blend of this reality field and that, which will involve the opening of portals that go to the inner Earth. There will be contact between the Shambhali and the Rama races and the hybrids that exist there within the bridge zone that we've talked about in the Amente book. This group is here to lead the way to that, but we have the potential to go much further. You wouldn't be in this group if you didn't hold DNA configurations that have the potential of being activated rapidly enough to get you to higher levels, because it's a master's levels course. And for some reason, when that frequency was broadcast out on this trip, it's this group that responded. That's telling you something about yourself. You had receptors for master's level understanding. So somewhere in there, you have an avatar just waiting to be born. Okay? You are an avatar, just waiting to ground the rest of yourself here. And that's why you were drawn in to this particular line of teaching. We all have avatars. Even the little guys out there that have no idea what I'm talking about have an avatar level of identity. But not everybody has an agreement in this lifetime to embody that level of consciousness. Avatar contracts are just that. The planetary grids can hold only so many avatars at one period of time. There's a lot of schools out there, avatar, we'll teach you how to be avatars. Well, great, you can teach somebody how to be an avatar, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to become one in this lifetime. They can maybe ground their oversoul. That is a potential most people can do if they really try. But to have an avatar contract where you would respond to the frequencies that were transmitted for this particular event that we've been walking through, that means that you had connections before you came in here to higher gestalts of consciousness that had agreed to be part of the planetary portal protection plan. And you agreed as avatars to participate in that program. You would have avatar contracts to respond to this. And to some of you, this may seem very strange because you never really thought about it or cared much. If you could realize just the fact that you showed up is telling you something very, very important about you and about your life and about what choices you might want to make. Because when you realize that you made choices to be an avatar here, that's a high-level contract. That means you came in with the potential to have much more power than an average person, but also more responsibility to how it comes out for everybody else. It's a balance. You might want to think about when you get home what that means. You have within you, and now you have the processes open within you that will allow you to start bringing in the frequencies in which you have stored that information for yourselves. You don't need me to tell you what your avatar contract is. We've given you the tools and the activations. So you would have got these activations, but they would have happened much more slowly. And you might not have made it in time for 2012 when the Stargates opened. You were guided here, and I was guided here to allow the transmission of frequency to be given that would get you aware enough of your avatar contracts in time. Now, in time will be something different for each of you. There's a different contract for each of you, and only you can find it, but it's there. So let it be known that you have that. You have come here to ground some kind of information, or some kind of frequency, but to participate in a world service project. And you will most likely fulfill it simply by following who you are and what feels the most right and the most special to you. Follow where the energy is. If you have a career choice and your heart's saying this, oh, I really like to do this, yeah, but it's more practical to do this. If you could possibly do the thing that your heart is telling you, do it. You're here to do it. You will feel the difference when you're making choices where the energy is in you. You will feel, okay, yeah, I feel kind of about that. Or I feel, yeah, I'm a little more interested in that. Learn to sense. In this society, everybody's taught to numb themselves to death, where they just follow protocol because it's the way things are done. We need to get in touch with how we feel inside, get in touch with how we feel in relation to choices, and learn to honor our feelings, regardless of how silly they might be sometimes. Sometimes you need to trust spontaneous order, and if you realize you feel a certain way, it may seem impossible to do something, simply say, okay, higher levels of self, I feel the energy here. That must mean something. Show me how to do it. Just guide day by day. You'll be guided on a path that you might never have figured out trying to sit there and rationally doing it. You need to learn to feel and to sense it. That's how you'll find out what your contracts are. That's where you'll begin to hear your own soul and higher part speak to you. And it may be direct cognition rather than words that speaks it. You'll just simply know the right thing to do in the situation. You may not know, just like this trip has been a great experiment in being able to surrender it and knowing the outcome would get done, but having no idea how it was going to get there. Sometimes in finding and honoring your avatar contracts and embodying your wholeness, you need to take that approach. Try to map it out in linear logical terms. You're just not going to figure out a way that you could possibly, if you find your goal, let's say, or one of the goals, you can look at your life and look at the goal and say, how in the world is that ever going to happen? It's just impossible. Well, I'll tell you, nothing is impossible. Sometimes it's more difficult, but it's not impossible. If you learn, like we've been having practice with this time, to surrender to a higher will, it's your higher will. Your will is a higher being from a higher state of consciousness. It'll guide you where you need to be. But if you get into the thing, well, I got to do it this way because there's no other options, you're better off spending your time saying, okay, whole self, I know there's a better option. Instead of saying, there is no better option, you're blinding yourself when you say things like that to yourself. When you say, well, it has to be this way because there is no other way, you're not leaving your higher parts room to show you that other way. So it's like retraining your thinking. We've been taught here to think in certain ways. And those ways block our ability to hear and feel our higher guidance. Those ways were given to us on purpose. So we'd never be able to do that. We can rise above that now. Now you've got the activations in your biosystem that will lead you right along. I want to talk to you about the activations in your biosystem a little bit, so when you get home, you have an idea of what this might do or what it might feel like. Now, I'm going to graph for this. Okay, when we go into DNA acceleration, for one, this hasn't been done in thousands and thousands of years. It's been 200,000 years, 210,000, 216 years since the last stellar activation cycle, when people on the planet went through spontaneous DNA activation like we're moving into now. So there's nothing in recorded history that gives you a clue at all as to what's going on. When you go into DNA activation, at least now, you're going into it in an ordered framework. You're learning to use the Maharic shield, which will recode and progressively purge out distortions in the DNA strands. You're going to be witnessing in the next 12 years people out there who have not gone through that recoding process. And what that's going to do for them is if they hit DNA blockages where they can't pull in the frequencies that the Earth grids are sending, they're going to find a number of things affecting them. They may have their physical health deteriorating more rapidly. They may find their mental and emotional bodies not able to keep stable in those frequencies. You might have had that experience if you hadn't been guided to a situation where you would be taught the mechanics to get your imprint for health regenerating itself, where you can get rid of those DNA problems that will block your ability to pull in frequency. So you're ahead of the game in that sense. If you start to watch in the next 12 years, crime rate increases and people are acting more wacky. I mean, kids are shooting each other in grade school at this point. Is this not a little strange? The grid has been activating already, slowly, on the first, second, and third orders for like about 10 years. And progressively, we are watching accelerations in certain types of negative conditions. These will increase, and we may even have some, localized or maybe even worse, earth changes added to it. The people that know these processes that you're beginning to learn now will have an advantage of knowing how to hold their biofields and know what to do with them so they can stay stable in an unstable planetary environment. You're learning enough that you can go and teach other people, or you can assist other people in creating that field stability so you can do a great service. And as you help others, you also run more current for yourself, which accelerates your process even more. So it's when you help yourself heal, when you help others heal, you are helping yourself heal as well. And the more people heal, the more the planetary grid accelerates back to its Maharic shield, back to its 12th dimensional imprint. So the more you work with these energies, the more you're helping others, yourself, and the planet. And when you're helping the planet, you are helping to avoid the very real possibility of pole shift during this period. So it's a thing that's worth spreading. You have enough information available. We have a couple of courses. Some of you already have them and are already taking them. We have the Cathara healing program, which healing is really a mild word for this program, because Cathara healing is full-blown ascension mechanics. Full-blown ascension mechanics are healing because they restore the holographic imprint back to its original pattern, which is the 12-strand pattern. And that will produce healing on all levels. We're going to also get into, in the Cathara level 2, very fascinating technologies that have been used by the higher races, of higher evolution races, of etheric crystal programming. Using unique Cathara 1, because it tells you where your body parts are, and not just the identifiable ones on the outside. It'll show you what DNA corresponds to, what axiotonal lines corresponds to, what Kundalini levels, to what dimensional frequencies, so you know where your 15-dimensional parts are located. Once you know that, then you can learn how to directly program what you desire into certain areas to get certain effects. You'll be able to create progressive healing in your life. It won't be instantaneous. You can't go bang, you're fixed. It's not that easy. But you'll learn the mechanics. You're learning to be energy doctors, energy healers. But you're also learning to set yourself free. Because At the end of all this, there are two basic outcomes, which is better than the usual. Because at the end of all this, in any one given lifetime, there's usually one basic outcome. You die, you know? And a lot of people here are not even taught to do that well. They're taught all sorts of weird belief systems where they cross over and their consciousness freaks out because they weren't taught what to do with it once they got it across. Some people, especially the scientific group, don't even realize they cross. They think it's gone because they're under the misinformation that consciousness is created by biochemical reactions in the body. Well, I hate to tell them consciousness came first. They'll find this out. It's the scientists that really freak out when they cross over, that have not acknowledged spirituality at all, because they have no idea what to do with themselves once they realize they're still conscious and they don't have a body anymore. It seems unnatural to them because they believed that being non-existent was the natural state. We have a choice at the end of a life, and most times for thousands and thousands of years that choice has simply been to die and freak out, or to die and learn to do it well so you can cross over well. There's another choice added this time, and there's not going to be many people who are able to do it, but there will be some, and that is amazing. That'll go down in the annals of galactic history for this planet. There will be some people who are able to go through stargates physically. And it doesn't matter if you go through physically or if you drop the body and go through as consciousness, as long as you have enough frequency within your consciousness to get where you want to go. Many, many of us have been here for thousands and thousands of years, circling around and round in dense matter, finite physical bodies, because we could not pull in enough frequency into the consciousness here and into the body to take us out of harmonic 1 and into harmonic 2 or above. This time, we have the chance, and believe me, there's a lot waiting to get through. There's a bunch of beings for millions of years that have been crossing over into D4, but not being able to make it higher. They've been stuck there. Some of them reincarnate, some of them just hang out there. It's like population explosion at D4. So people are going to be leaving the cycles of harmonic 1 from D4, from D3, and some of them even from D2 by getting host matrixed into others. This is a really grand event, but most people on this planet don't have the information to even understand that. You do. This particular group is the highest level group that's going to be trained. And people that get this level training are not training for simply a transition into the 4.5 frequency zone of bridge zone. They may go there for a while. Some of you may have contracts to transition before that and end up on Tara to help people cross over. You may end up on the other side to pull them through. This particular group has the ability to activate full 6 strand within a time period that would allow moving through physical portal structures, physically. This would mean that unlike the ones ascending on a 5th strand activation, which we'll get into in D5, they would take the Alcyone route. Now in the halls of Amente, stargates of Amente, there are 6 primary portal bridges that take you into different time zones, into different harmonics. Most that actually make it through into any kind of physical ascension process will find themselves moving through on the 5th dimensional current, and they will end up in time systems of Alcyone, the Pleiades. And they will end up in a time system on Tara that's connected to Alcyone. The ones that are able to activate full 6 strand don't have to go that well. There's still a lot of polarity problems there. There's still a lot of issues that aren't resolved in that time zone on Terra. And there's still a lot of manipulation happening on Alcyone. There's another route out. It's the route that the 2nd seeding, not the 3rd, but the 2nd seeding of this race went through. That was through Sirius B. There was a portal bridge there that was once activated that in the 3rd seeding was only used by certain cloister races and certain pharaohs and certain kings who were actually keepers of the ascension codes, because they were the only ones that could get up a high enough strand activation to go through these systems. This group has the potential to activate DNA high enough to pass through right beyond the Alcyone spirals and right into Sirius B, which will take you into 6th dimensional consciousness, would take you into seeing the fifth dimension as solid. It's a different time zone on Tara. And it's also on Tara, but Sirius B has an active life presence there, and Tara and Sirius B interact with each other a lot there. It's a different way out. And whether you're taking a body out or taking your consciousness out, it's nice to know where you're pointing it when you get over there. So whether you have enough time to activate the DNA to get the body through, or whether you're just going to say, oh, forget it, your soul already knows whether you're going to take the body through or just say, forget it, drop the body when it's time, and go as consciousness. But this group can go either way, through the Sirius B portals, through the Stargates, through Sirius B, to end up in a future time zone on Tara that leads right into the Gaian, etheric time zones. It's the most advanced course available right now. Most that ascended all will take Alcyon, and they'll end up in time cycles where they have manifestation rather than rebirth cycles in the lower frequencies of Tara. You will be able to go into the higher frequencies of Tara and beyond if you work with the energies. You have the activations now, and once they're set in motion, you can't stop them. But that's good.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to. Why would you want to? I mean, if they're uncomfortable, you can say, yo, up there, higher identity structure here. This is making me uncomfortable. Let's cool it for a while. And your wishes will be honored. But once you get these activations, you have set in motion the rest of your consciousness, working its way into your head, working itself into embodiment here. The people that don't begin integrating the higher identity levels are going to fall prey to some of the manipulation that's taking place here. We have Illuminati through certain various government forces working with electromagnetic pulse technology and beginning baby level scalar technologies, where they're going to do frequency fences. They're bioneurological blocks created by waves that you don't see, that they can run just about anywhere they want for whatever effects they want. It's a technology given to them by the Zetas, and the Zetas are pretty good at it, and they use it for manipulation. The populations that don't go through these activations are going to be very, very vulnerable to having their DNA blocked by invisible waves that they don't see, which will block their perceptual field into the three-dimensional field. So things that are manipulating from the fourth dimension can continue to do that without being identified. It's a form of mind control, and it's already actively being used in test groups in certain countries' military, like CIA-type forces. There are secret governments behind our governments, and this is a rude awakening for many people, especially light workers. They don't want to hear it. They only want to hear about light, love, and friendliness. Well, it is all friendly, and even if you're playing the negative polarity, the positive polarity still loves you, but it's a reality of the game down here. The activations you receive today will protect you from that. With the frequencies that you will now be bringing into your fields, you are not going to fall under mind control. It's not even an if at this point. Once those seals are opened, your soul and your oversoul and your avatar and your rishi will direct how it flows so it doesn't overwhelm you. It'll be paced for you. But at this point, there are too many frequencies already running through your fields for you to fall into a D4 or D3 transmission of mind control. There may come a time when this becomes extremely valuable to you, because you may hit a time, if things go well here, if they go like they're going over on parallel Earth, where you watch the majority of people fall under that. And you will be amazed, like the people on parallel Earth were, when their friends, their neighbors, some of their family just all of a sudden plugged into some program that was being endorsed by the government, and it's like one world, happy, unity, light, love, and surrender your being to central type control and be happy about it because it's really good for you. This was what the mind control thing did over there. And the ones who were able to not get put under the frequency fence watched in horror as perfectly rational people were doing very irrational things. People who once believed in freedom were surrendering their personal power to join mindless collectives. This is how it went over there. It could go that way here. If it does, you will be among the few, and there will be more. The more people we train, the more people we get at least to a 4.5, preferably 5 DNA activation level, will not be able to be affected by those frequency fences. But if it gets that bad, you will also be the first they want to get rid of, because you'll be able to see what's going on behind the scenes. You'll be able to see the messes that are going on behind the political structures. You'll be able to see the infiltration of visitors from elsewhere, making their presence very quietly known to control things down here. So you'll see things that others may not. If it gets to that point, at least you will be prepared. You will have your open access to progressively higher levels of guidance. How do I help with this situation? So, by showing up for this trip and going through Azurite Boot Camp, you've given yourself the gift, at least, if nothing else, of freedom of mind. You've also given yourself a body of knowledge to work with, to play with, to teach others with, that you can transform your perceptual field. You can learn to bilocate. You can learn to project several of yourselves in different places and become aware of all of them, and then you can send them on missions. It's not quite as good as having physical clones, but you can gain a lot of information that way. You can become D4 functional, where when you close your eyes at night, you wake up somewhere where you're even more awake than you are here. I do that all the time. When I go to sleep, that's when I wake up. I do a lot of things on the other side, like help people that die cross over well so they don't fragment and lose themselves. And this is just little guide jobs that you get on the other side. They're very fulfilling and rewarding. When you begin to realize how free you can be, you begin to realize how non-free you have been, being raised with the belief systems of this culture. So you're entering a journey with these activations, a journey back into your eternal nature, back into the self that can never be eradicated, that always exists there. You're growing back into the awareness of it, and that will separate you from many, many people on the planet, because they're not going in that direction yet. When you're going in that direction and they're not, compassion is the way to handle it. If you can help them, you do. If they're not ready for it, you allow them to be what they are. But you hold the highest vision for them, because no matter how lowly someone's consciousness is here, even the black suns that we talk about sometimes, and even the nasty avatars that control them, once upon a time they all came from the same place we did. They were pure consciousness. They were light-filled. That is their destiny, eventually. And they'll get there by their choices. Nobody's going to make it for them. So it is a unity consciousness. We don't teach polarity, separating good and bad. We teach you to differentiate between things that will get you back to wholeness and things that will keep you from it. And when you get on the path of wholeness, and you see others that are making choices that are putting them on the path that is not of wholeness, you don't push them away. You ask your higher parts. Eventually you'll be your higher parts, so you don't even have to ask. You'll just figure it out for yourself. What can I do to assist in this situation? It'll take you in a whole new way of perceiving this reality field as you move through this. That's what you have to look forward to. Now, with the activations, there's some little physical things you may feel as you go through the processing of the frequencies. The activations were done very, very subtly. It's a time release thing, rather than just like blowing it all into your field and having you, vibrate all over the place and be bouncing off walls in the plane as you're going home. It will release itself. Those frequencies will release themselves in doses, and it's being regulated by your own soul and oversoul matrix. You may have emotions coming up from the emotional body. You may have conflicts coming up between your idea patterns. Well, I believe this, but I believe that too, and they don't make sense with each other. I'm going to have to pick one. You'll find gentle confrontations with yourself on issues. Areas that are holding you back in your growth may show themselves, so you look at them, so you can reperceive it and change your beliefs about it, so then it doesn't hold you back anymore. You may have some of that. You may also have some physical stuff, like you may feel tingling running through your body in different parts. You may get tingling running up and down your legs. You may get tingling in private spots. You may get energy running through your whole system where you feel wired once in a while. It'll be cyclic. You won't be like wired from now until eternity where you're just buzzing around. But you may get buzzy periods where you just feel frequency running through you. This is normal. It may feel like symptoms that would be associated with hormone changes, like hot flashes, cold flashes, change in sleeping patterns. You may find yourself awake more just because you're not sleepy. It will balance out if you have little times of where, and it probably won't be right away. It might be like 6 weeks later, all of a sudden your sleeping patterns shift. And you find yourself awake when you're not used to being awake. You're not having an insomnia problem. You're having a pineal activation problem, and it's not a problem. It'll balance out, all right? You need to trust your body to handle its energy. Once it's aligned, it knows how to do that, and it will. So you don't need to go running to a doctor for every little symptom of things that pop up. A doctor's not going to be able to help you with pineal activation because as far as they're concerned, it's something dormant that's not used anymore, never will be, and it's useless. So, and they're not going to help you with DNA activation either, as you probably know. They think we just have the double spiral. They're not seeing any of the other coding that goes with it. They don't understand the pattern yet. When you take this path, you're saying to your soul, all right, we're just going to go higher than what's available on the planet right now. That means being a little bit courageous when it comes to your physical health and those kind of things. If you need to go to a doctor and you really feel you need to, go to one. But if you're having little discomforts here and there, or your system doesn't feel quite right for little periods of time, let it cycle. There will be a cycle to things. If you have periods of fatigue or hypersensitivity to sound, it may pop up once in a while. These aren't going to be permanent, and they won't last for weeks on end. When we went through the early pineal activations, usually it was about a 3-day cycle, where we'd have 3 days where just all of a sudden we're just very, very sensitive to every energy around us. Couldn't stand by Xerox machines, photocopiers. It just made me nauseous. Couldn't ride in cars sometimes. Now I'm hypersensitive, and I'm keyed to be hypersensitive so I can translate this information. You won't get it that bad unless you happen to have an avatar contract to bring in acadic level information. Then you might. But there's only 3 acadic contracts on planet right now. So you don't have to worry about getting to the point where you can't even ride in a car because it's so sensitive to frequency. You just may find times when you're a little grouchy because sound bothers you more, or being around too many people bothers you more. Just honor it. If you're uncomfortable in a situation, simply remove yourself from it at that time. If you learn to honor what your system needs to make you feel more comfortable, it'll cycle, it'll pass, and you'll be better than you ever were. So it's a cyclic thing as you work with these activations. There'll be certain levels that cycle first. You'll get some for each chakra level. Trust your bodies. Nothing here has been done that's not perfectly organic to your body. All we did was throw in some frequencies that belong to you anyway, but that would be frequencies you would have run into in the future rather than now. So it's just an acceleration. I don't want you to be frightened. We won't get into the issue of karma right now, because that would take a workshop before it to qualify it for the people who haven't heard the workshops where I've talked about that. But you will also find patterns that are karmic patterns called miasmic crystals, purging, which means your little karmic issues that you have with other people that you might not even know you have will start popping up. But then they'll clear. You may have arguments coming up out of nowhere with somebody at work or something. Where did that come from? Once it processes, though, the energy drops. It's just not there anymore. You kind of look at each other, there's nothing to argue about here, let's let it go. If you have these little situations coming up, it is part of the process of healing and realigning yourselves. There's some of the earlier workshops for those who haven't been there for what we've talked about on karma, because karma is not just a conceptual thing, it's a physics thing. And we've described that in some of the other workshops. So there's a science behind that word. It's not just a vague concept about somebody pulling your strings and about having to pay debts off. It's not like that. That was trying to explain a physics phenomenon. They didn't have the words to use at the time. So I just wanted you to be aware of these things. I know everybody's tired, and I could go on and on forever, because once I get on a roll, it's like an autopilot. But I won't do that, because I think we're going to have to wake a couple people up already when we're done. What I want to do real quick, and this is going to be scary, because I'm almost afraid to take you into the meditation right now, because you may end up sleeping out here.
Too cold.
Yeah, and it's also distracting, the chill and the wind and the fact that we're all exhausted. There is another way. There's one part that we didn't get to do at the pyramid because we were rushed through the whole thing, and that was the receiving your Amente passcode. We were going to take you on a bilocation journey that requires the ability to concentrate, and right now I don't think that's going to be real comfortable for the group. There is a way, however. You can be led through that journey, but it's going to require a little bit of independent action on your part. There is one of the priests of Earth, from Inner Earth. His name is Rashahad, has been working with us through all of these activations. He's the primary guardian presence, and he's in a physical form there. He's a primary guardian presence of the Inner Earth portal that's beneath the Sphinx. And he has agreed, and he was going to take us. We were going to go down and mentally bilocate to their space, their frequency, and he was going to introduce himself to you, each of you, in his own way, and he was going to give you an etheric crystal. It's not etheric there, but it will be etheric here, because when you bring it back, it's not going to be solid in your hand because it's a different frequency. But he was going to give you a crystal that had inside of it a particular scalar program in the shape of a symbol code and a tone that went with your biofield when it first entered through the stargates of Amente to get in down here, to get into harmonic one. We all have that symbol and that tone. It's ours. We just have to remember it and find it. Rashahad was going to assist us in doing this. Now, he can still do this, even if we don't try to go into this meditation tonight. It's not going to work tonight, I can tell. We're going to have most of the people literally asleep on the chairs and maybe falling off them to try to go that deep, because you really need to be more awake for it. You can, if you want, and Rashahad is prepared to do this, and Nazar is prepared to help you, and so are the ISIS crew, for those who have asked for their help. Before you go to sleep tonight, and you may be too tired to go in the morning, but keep doing it. Imagine yourself going down into a blue flame at the center of the earth, and then when you feel yourself in that blue flame, getting sleepy and fuzzy, just tell yourself, I'm going to the Fountain of Artemis. Fountain of Artemis. It is a place. It is where I was going to take you when we were doing this journey. This is where I was taken. This is where the walkout was taken in preparation for the energies that we went through with our walkout. This is a place, a physical place, in the frequencies of Inner Earth, which are about a half notch between here and parallel Earth. When your consciousness is stationed in a certain way, those areas are just as physical as these areas. So the Fountain of Artemis is a real physical place that people of 4.5 consciousness can find. When you mentally bilocate, you're taking a part of your consciousness and putting it in those frequencies. So you will experience it, and part of you is physically there. But when that part comes back here, it will remember it as like an etheric journey. But if you go into the blue flame, very simple, imagine yourself moving down into the Earth's core and into the image of a blue flame. That's the fifth dimensional frequency bubble, you could look at it like. It doesn't mean you're in D5 yet. It's kind of like a vehicle for transport. And just simply say, I'm going to the Fountain of Artemis. And fall asleep with that thought. Rashahad and Azara will try to pull you through the other end to get you there. And progressively, the more you use this simple suggestion, the more you will be able to remember in the morning. You might not remember for 3 weeks, but if you continue to use the suggestion, you're going to the blue flame, you're going to the Fountain of Artemis, they will meet you there. And you will begin to remember having dream-type experiences, except they'll have a different quality than your regular dreams. They won't feel the same. They'll be more real feeling, though. There's a whole different energy to it. You will make the connection there, and the part's you'll make the connection the first time you use it, but remembering it is going to be the tricky part. So that's why you use it repeatedly. You're building the neural networks to remember what took place in those frequencies. You will meet Rashahad, and it's kind of funny. He looks a little bit like Phil, not facially, but he has the black curly hair, and he has kind of tan skin, and he's kind of trying to think of nationality-wise, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that he looks like feature-wise. But if you see a guy with kind of tan skin and black curly hair and a nice big smile, That's Rosh Hashanah. He'll introduce himself in his own way to you. Those of you who decide to work with the ISIS crew can ask them to help you get there, because they know about it too. They've used these spaces before. These are part of the land spaces of Inner Earth that are connected to Sirius B as well. So the people that are going to be taken out through Sirius B have always been made affiliated with those spaces. It's going to be kind of independent study here. You'll get out of it what you put into it. But they will meet you there, and they will give you, Rosh Hashanah will give you what appears to be a crystal, and in that will be your sound light code. What you can do when you return, and if you have a crystal, what I really wanted to do, and I tried to do before we came here, was to get 40 crystals. But there was no place, I couldn't even find any in Egypt. I tried to find some back home, and I could only find like huge ones. They're like $300, and I don't have that kind of money. But if you get yourself a quartz crystal, preferably double terminated, but it's not that important. Use it in meditation. Imagine the crystal, that you'd been given a crystal by Rosh Hashanah, even if you don't remember it yet. In meditation, remember that you were given a crystal. You just have to remember where it was. Imagine the two crystals coming together in your palm. You actually put it in the left hand, the receiving hand. Take your crystal, draw the program from the etheric crystal into the physical crystal, and then draw it up your arm and into your heart chakra. You're putting it in your astral field. Now it's becoming available to your consciousness. You will have a tone that's actually 3 tones together. You'll first hear one, and then you'll start to hear the 2 others within it. And you will get an image of a symbol code. They belong to you and you alone. They are the scalar patterns that you cross through into harmonic 1 on. And they are therefore the scalar patterns that you will use to cross back out. They're in there and you can find them. If you do the work, you'll find them. It's a journey. And part of it will be part of you running around in semi-solid form. You need to do one thing. Throw out the old definitions of what certain things mean that you've heard through psychiatry and all of that. Imagination, hallucination. They wouldn't know the difference between a bilocation and a hallucination. There's a big difference. So just, if you think I'm just imagining this, fine, use that word. But you're doing lots more than that. You're taking your consciousness and teaching it new tricks that were its heritage. Learn to trust that, and you'll get far. Yes?
Could you repeat when you said when you're holding a crystal in your left hand, just could you repeat what you said you do with it and bring it to your heart so I can put that down for you?
Right. You would just take your physical crystal, and even if you don't remember yet being given the crystal, you'll be given it the first time you do this exercise, going into the flame and going into the fountain of Artemis. But you may not remember the experience. But know it was given to you. In a meditation, imagine physical crystal, and then imagine the semi-solid crystal in your palm, and simply bring them together and visualize them merging as one. Let the energy settle a little bit. You're putting the etheric program into your physical crystal. Then you're going to breathe in and inhale and draw that program, that energy signature, up your left arm and into the heart chakra. And if you want, you can then exhale it down to the 3rd chakra and put it in your mental body, putting it in even closer range. You're modulating frequency here. And that's what this is all about. That's what reality is all about. If you work with that, you may be very surprised very quickly with the results. So I know everybody's very, very tired here, and a lot of you are cold, so I'm not going to make you freeze anymore. One more thing on the Melchizedek things. Now, everybody accepted the Melchizedek ordinations. Any of you that just got that ordination today, that wants the certificate that goes with it, makes you an official minister, or rabbinic minister of Melchizedek Temple. If you want to do Cathara healing or something, it gives you legal permission for hands-on work in some states that do not permit you to touch people physically unless you happen to be clergy without a doctor's license. If you have clergy, you can do spiritual healing. So it gives you some advantages. If you want it, you can send it. You can send us an email, and we'll get it to you, just so we know which ones of you want it. We have all of your addresses and stuff from the original list. But those of you who just got the ordination and want your certificate, you can email us at philgruber@home.net, or you can write to us directly. And if you want to write to us for any reason too, if you want longhand, it's more private than email and that kind of stuff, because we all know the internet is monitored. If you ever want to communicate with me a little more privately, there's still a chance of getting snail mail hijacked, but it's not as invasive as the internet. The address is 1755 Dawn Street, Sarasota, Florida.
We'll be getting a contact sheet in the mail real soon with all of our names, addresses, telephone numbers, email addresses,
Okay, well that's good.
websites, etc.
If any of you want to do the Cathara healing thing, get involved with that, but haven't been involved with it yet, just let us know. He said he's going to do up a contact sheet, and that's great. Thank you. Yes.
It's going to be a while before we get these tapes. Is it possible when we get the contact sheet to get a typed instruction of this, what you're just giving us?
Tonight's
Yeah, we can just talk about it. I'm going to get the tapes for a while.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the going to Fountain of Artemis thing, yeah, I can do you one of those quick. And I'll get the tapes ready as fast as I can, at least the audios. Videos are going to take longer, because that's going to, as far as editing, this ought to be real interesting. But I will get the audios available to you as soon as possible. Is there anybody who doesn't want the audio tapes? That makes it easy. Okay, we'll just send them out to everybody. So we'll just get them dubbed, labeled and dubbed, and get you your copies as soon as we can. And
Question, would people be interested in getting the lectures on a videotape with the Egypt tour in the background on the video?
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Mark.
Would anybody be interested in hearing the lecture but on a video and seeing your Egypt tour on the screen?
I would, yeah.
Would that be nice? All in one easy package?
That's pretty cool.
Okay? That'd be easier than fumbling with, like 6 different tapes and you get them all mixed up, you don't know which one is which, you can get it all in one video. And it's easy to download that onto audio. It's very easy.
So no audio
it's going to
tape?
take longer. You may get the first set of audios just numbered, which one was which, with labels on them first. It's going to take a bit of time to do that one.
Not that much. 2 weeks. But it's up to them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll make it available to you. But time-wise, I will try to get the audios out with simple labels. This was this, this was this, this was this, as fast as possible, and then that will be an option. If you want it, that'd be great. But I know this is going to take time. I have 6 other programs I'm putting together. I'm going to be useless.
I'll be working on it.
Okay.
It's,
You don't even have the computer that can do that yet.
Don't need a computer.
You don't? For the editing?
No.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Great. That's great.
We have
You can do that?
Yeah,
I'm
we can do
thrilled.
that.
gratuity envelope for tour guides.
Yeah, where's the
Where
envelope?
did they
It's
go?
over here. I'll be a minute.
Okay, we're going to finish passing the envelopes around. I just want to thank you all
Thank you.
for this wonderful, wild experience. Did you have a good time, even though it was strange?
Very
Great.
Did you?
Well,
Is there anybody that feels disappointed that they didn't get what they wanted? Because if there's any way I can help you to feel that you did, I would probably stand on my head to try to make you happy. Because I'm like that. I care that you spent money to come here and do this with us. It meant something to me. I wanted it to be perfect for you. I'm a Virgo, okay, in this imprint, and I'm very detail oriented. That's why I just kind of watch this thing and kind of go, oh my God. Virgo's like order and one thing after another. And I just learned my lesson of having to totally surrender it. So I hope that despite the fact that we've been herded around like cattle and we're all exhausted, and this will be the 3rd time we're up at 3 o'clock in the morning for God knows what real reason. It's bizarre. I know, this time to get home. Wasn't what I had planned, but we got done what I had planned. So you did get what was promised, just not exactly in the order that it was promised.
That's what the
I hope you're all
universe
happy, and I hope it will be an experience you'll take back and find many, many treasures in once you get time to say, what just hit me? So thank you. I'm going to let you all go to sleep now.
Before we reconvene, can you pause the